welcome home, welcome to SED, welcome to home away from home. Please take a seat. This program is about to begin. Thank you.
So my name is Dr. Jessica Sharp, and I am the Vice President of the Houston Area Urban League Young Professionals, HALYP, and we are co-hosting this event tonight with SED. So first of all, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate y'all spending a Friday night with us. We're really excited for this event. I also want to make sure that you all know that some of our team is registering voters in the back, and you can also check your voter registration. But the Houston Area Urban League Young Professionals is an auxiliary group. We are a branch of the Houston Urban League, and both of us exist essentially to improve the Black community, certainly in Houston, but also nationally. So the YP group, the way that we do that is through events like this, through civic engagement related activities, social activities, a lot of community outreach to improve ourselves and our community. And then we also have the Guild, who is represented tonight, are for our folks who are, we won't call them seasoned, but over 40, who still want to continue to be involved in the work of the Houston Urban League. So if you want to learn more about HALYP or join HALYP, we are always taking new members every single day of the week. You can go to halyp.org, HAULYP.org/either join or /events, or you can talk to me or anybody who's got an Urban League pin on. So
thank you all so much for being in attendance this evening at Pipeline to Power. Really excited to have you here. My name is Toby out of BC. I am a volunteer here at SED, as well as a clinical researcher here in Houston as well. It is an honor to serve at a library like this that provides a space for free thinkers and creatives to really focus on African culture from a diasporan perspective. And this library was actually established back in 2019. And since then, SED has been proud to have impacted over 1 million people with different events and activities, hundreds of businesses, and of course creatives looking for a way to express their talent. And we still have so much more to do as we usher into our 5th year here at SED. We're starting a whole new project called Africa House, which is exactly what it sounds like, a repurposed residential property that would become a hub for art, culture, community and professional development, which is really exciting for us here at SED. Personally, being part of this project is a really rewarding one for me, being that I grew up not too far from here in A-Leaf, and I would have loved growing up to see spaces like this. So yeah, a really great opportunity. And I encourage you all to contribute in any way that you can, whether that being purchasing a ticket for our 5th anniversary Royal Ball that's coming up in December. All the proceeds for that goes towards funding Africa House, or you can just make a financial pledge into contributing towards that. And so I, as well as some other SED members, will be around tonight to just give you more information about that. If you have any questions, please feel free to come up to me, and we'll be happy to give you more information about that. So we look forward to building with you and speaking with you throughout the evening. With that being said, I would like to introduce our panel moderator for the evening. He currently serves as a supply chain commercial manager for Shell USA. He's a friend of SED and supports and volunteers with several organizations in Houston, including UNCF, Houston Food Bank, Dominion Chapel Houston, and National Black MBA Associations, the Houston chapter. So please welcome Emeka Iwochukwu.
Greetings, folks. Good to see you all. There's a lot more people here than when I first came in and went back there. But yeah, now I'm really excited to be here moderating the panel today. I'll grab a seat and I'll introduce the panelists that will be speaking today. But first, just a bit of a kind of an agenda. Yeah? So I'll introduce them. They'll have 2 to 3 minutes to just talk a bit about themselves, anything related to the topic that they want to discuss. They'll have a seat. I'll introduce the next person. We'll go like that till all 3 are sat here. And then I'll go ahead and ask them questions for about 45 minutes. And then we'll open it up to the audience, to you beautiful gentlemen and ladies, to ask any questions that you have for the panel. Yeah?
All right, so the first panelist we brought is Tiffany Thomas.
She's a Houston City Councilwoman for District F. Tiffany is a second-term council member dedicated to serving the community with principled leadership. With a background rooted in community advocacy and public service, she brings a wealth of experience to her role as a council member and chair of the Housing and Affordability. With a deep-rooted passion for centering people's priorities, she has dedicated her career to championing the needs of her constituents and ensuring their voices are heard at every level of governance. She marks her leadership with transparency, collaboration, and a steadfast commitment to serving the best interests of the constituents and the city. She envisions a future where every community member has the opportunity to earn, own, thrive, and learn. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our first panelist, Tiffany Thomas.
I greet you as your council member, having the privilege to represent many of you at Houston City Hall. Oh, I got a good clap. Thank you for that clap. And so I am so honored that I was invited to share this time with you, not just as your council member. When I had the opportunity to visit the continent last summer, when we were in Nigeria, they said, "Welcome home, my brother, my sister." When we went to Ghana, they said, "Akwaba." When we went to Cote d'Ivoire and Abidjan, they kissed us on the cheek. And so I want to offer that same welcome home in District F on the west side, the best side of Houston. And I say that repeatedly because District F was once said we were the forgotten district. People didn't know who we were. They didn't pay attention to us. We didn't get the investments. We didn't get the resources. And I was deeply committed to making sure that we were not forgotten. And we're not. District F is now the future of the city of Houston. When I look out into this audience, I see your face and I see Houston. I see America. I see the global majority, the world. So tonight, I'm so excited about the opportunity to share space with you. And if I may, as a past president of the Houston Area Urban League Young Professionals, offer a PSA. The Urban League is where I cut my teeth. The Urban League gave me a front row seat to understanding and mastering the issues around housing, economic development, education, civic engagement, all of the things that we're going to talk about today. So if you have been dancing around the equal signs, I want to offer you an invitation to commit to the Urban League and the movement. And in that commitment to the movement, it will open up so many opportunities for you to understand your place in this work. Many of you are already active in it, but I want to invite you to really get committed to this work because there's so much on the table and elected officials can't do it alone. So once an Urban Leaguer, always an Urban Leaguer. All right, I look forward to having a nice discussion with y'all tonight.
Our second panelist is Dexter McCoy. He's a commissioner for Fort Bend County Precinct 4. Dexter is a proud product of Fort Bend County's Mission Bend community, servicing Precinct 4 residents and Commissioner's Court since January 2023. The son of a teenage mother and a biological father who was incarcerated for much of his childhood, he defied the odds and excelled in Fort Bend public schools, graduated from Boston University, and devoted his career to public service and preserving human dignity, starting as an appointee in the Obama administration, continuing as a district leader in the Fort Bend Independent School District, and most recently as Chief of Staff to the Fort Bend County Judge. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dexter McCoy.
Howdy, folks. It is so good to be with you here this evening. I'm Dexter McCoy. I represent Fort Bend County's Precinct 4, and I couldn't be more excited about the topic that we're here to discuss today. The pipeline to power, talking about our democracy, about voting, and our civic duty in our community. He read in my bio, I grew up in Fort Bend County, over in Mission Bend. But as a kid growing up, I didn't know a whole heck of a lot about our history in Fort Bend, and certainly not about the history of my people in Fort Bend. But as I grew older, and most recently in 2018, when they unearthed the remains of 95 individuals who were victims of the convict leasing system in Texas, we started to learn a whole lot more about the consequential nature of Black folks in this community. Just 2 weekends ago, we broke ground on what's going to be the largest African American memorial in this region of the country, because we're going to cement and tell our history. But what we learned is that when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, there were twice as many Black folks as there were white folks in the Fort Bend County area. And after Blacks were given the right to vote, we took that power for all that it was worth. And we had Black elected officials. This was in the late 1800s when we had the first Black state representative in the state of Texas came from Fort Bend County. The first Black sheriff in the entire nation came from Fort Bend County. But folks weren't happy about that. And so what did they do? They drove out every Black official and their supporter out of Fort Bend County. They had to go to places like Waller County and Wharton County, to Austin County and many other places. In fact, that sheriff, who was the first Black in the entire nation to serve as a sheriff, he was murdered on the steps of where we conduct county business today. They were threatened by the power of the Black vote, because they knew when we have the power to vote, what that means for how we will uplift all communities, and that wasn't advantageous to everybody. And so we need to make sure that we continue to play an important role in protecting our right to vote, exercising our right to vote, because remember, it's in the legacy of those folks like Walter Moses Burton and Benjamin Franklin Williams who we walk and stand in today. So happy to engage in this conversation today.
Thank you, Dexter. Last but not least, our third panelist is Pelumi Adeleke. She's a global business development leader at AWS, Amazon Web Services. Pelumi is deeply committed to serving the community. She recently ran for the Harris County Appraisal District at large position number 3, winning the primary election and coming second in the runoff as a first-time political candidate. She's galvanized and contributed to presidential campaigns in the past 6 presidential elections as an active member of the Harris County Democratic Party. Pelumi also founded and chairs the Harvard Business Community Partners Program for Houston, which supports minority-owned businesses with pro bono advisory services, education, mentorship, and funding. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Pelumi Adeleke.
Thank you, Emeka. I'm sure that's me. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I am so glad to be here to see like-minded folks, my fellow Africans. I'm gonna just give you a short story about my journey into politics. I was born in Alabama, and like many folks whose parents came here for higher education, I went back to Nigeria, did my elementary all the way to high school. And Nigeria was in turmoil at that time. We had military rule, chaos was the rule of the day, and corruption was rampant, right? And so that sparked something in me, personally experiencing when you don't have great leaders in control of an environment, a place where we're blessed with resources, we're blessed with talent and an amazing culture. And so when I came back to the US, I decided I was gonna get involved when events started happening around me that I was not happy about. It was around the time George Bush Jr. became the president, and then we had the World Trade Center things happening. So I got involved in activism in college, and that sort of started my journey into politics. I've been pretty active in the Democratic Party, leading community partners program at Harvard, even as a country manager at Phillips, advocating for fair pay. But why did I run? And I'm here as a professional. I've spent my full life, in the professional world. I work for AWS right now and lead business development. Why did I get into politics? Well, we're here in Houston. I live in the HISD district. I saw what was happening with education. I'm a product of public education, not just here in the US, but even in Nigeria. I went to Federal Government Girls College, Oyo, okay? And some people would know that I graduated all the way to public school. And so I was unhappy about that. And I said I was gonna follow the money, right? So Harris County Appraisal District it has an impact on our property taxes. So I threw my hat in the race and decided I want to be the change that I want to see. And so when all of the race was said and done, and I'm proud of the race, a gentleman sent me a LinkedIn message 2 weeks later, right? I lost the race, and he said, Palumi, you're the first political candidate that would knock on my door in Pasadena, Texas, nonetheless, where you know it's unfriendly territory. And because you came and had a conversation with me, I went out and voted for you. And I encourage you to continue to strive for that. And so that is my encouragement to everyone here who's a professional. There is a space for you, and your voice is needed here in Texas. We need to take up space as Africans. I mean, we're loud in our houses. We need to be loud in government too.
That's right.
So I'm glad to be here to have this conversation with folks. You know, it's a pleasure to be sitting with you, Tiffany.
What is your favorite part of electoral season? So smear campaigns, is it the lies and the associated fact checkings, the conventions, the debates? What's your favorite part of electoral season?
Twitter.
I love it.
I'll say the memes are kind of hilarious. It's always interesting to see how creative people can be with portraying their ideas, and then how we get all these memeable moments, especially with the animated character we have running for one of one of our party nominees. There's a lot of content there, so it makes for good midnight scrolling.
Sorry, before you go, so what exactly about Twitter?
I like to read the comments, and so I mean, it's, you know, we have to learn to not take ourselves so seriously as elected officials, and I like to fight on Twitter. So, you know, I'm probably like the one counsel all of the comments, but I think, you know, on a more serious note, I really do appreciate listening to candidates, really understanding their perspective and kind of like teasing out the regular talking point. And so I like the debates. I do like to hear and read on Twitter or any social media platform feedback from everyday people. Like, what are the people really saying? Because we may think when we talk about it's hot, like, yeah, right, we get this hot here, right? So at least it keeps me honest, right? To say, oh, I'm not saying that when I go out to the next meeting because this didn't hit for her. It's gonna hit for me when I do it. So the social media platforms, you're gonna get some real deal, honest stuff. Because sometimes, you know, as commissioner, you know, I'm sure while you were running as a candidate, everybody gonna gas you up, right? You know, you're amazing everywhere until you get to the comments. And you're like, she thinks she ain't that. Like, God, I have to tighten up. So yeah, I think, you know, it keeps us humble and honest.
Live feedback.
I like free food and drinks.
There are lots of events to get to in Harris County, so there was always food and drinks. But really, just getting to talk to people one-on-one, people who didn't look like me and from different walks of life, that was sort of amazing. I spoke to more people than I've spoken to in my whole entire life in that 4 months of campaigning. So that was really interesting.
Excellent. All right. Just a reminder, some folks that came in a bit late, we'll start with some prepared questions from folks, and then we'll open it up to the audience. Yeah. All right. So first one, a few data points linked to civic engagements and voter participation. Yeah. So I'll start with good news. 2020 presidential elections saw the highest rate for a national election since 1900. 2018 midterm election had the highest rate for a midterm since 1914. Even 2022's election turnout, which was slightly lower than 2018, exceeded that of all midterm elections since 1917. Now, the presidential election for 2020, highest since 1900, voter turnout was 66%, so 2/3. Midterm elections, the high of 2018, 49%, so less than half. So my question, why do you think civic engagement isn't higher in the United States? What are the obstacles to citizens becoming more involved? What steps can folks take to be more engaged themselves or to influence others to become more engaged?
A lot of questions. So let me start with this. Here's some, you shared the good news, but let me offer something that's a little bit more sobering for us. 70% of 30-year-olds in Texas did not vote in the midterm in 2022. So we talking about some of y'all in this room,
Yeah.
right, by the numbers. So Texas, not the US, but let's talk about the House. 30 years old and under said, I ain't gonna go. We're gonna go to the happy hour for getting out the vote. We going to the meet and greet for the candidate, but I'm not gonna punch the ticket. Right? Like that's what the data shows. So I think that's hanging over our head, and 2024 is our redo. Here's the opportunity. If you skipped out, you gotta come down, right? The other thing is, I think why civic engagement is challenging is because we romanticize the elected official, right? Versus romanticizing and really underscoring civic engagement, public service. Public service is all of us, right? And so I think once that dynamic shifts, we'll start seeing people take lead, do things, and we do see that, right? But I think a lot of the energy we put is on the candidate and not the platform, not the policy. Do we have shared principles? So we can rightly divide what's what. And so sometimes, and I'll tell you this before I put my mic down, I had a teachable moment when I was very active in YP, and there was a mayor that was running. And I was on that mayor's re-election task force. And I was so excited. And that's when I was excited to be in the room. If we honest, some of us just happy to be in the room. We don't ask no questions. We just happy to be in the photo. We don't ask no questions. That was me. I was happy. I was like, Daddy, there no people that asked me to be on the committee, right? So then that mayor, once they were elected, said, I'm not into single family. I'm into apartments. And that's what I said. And I know what homeownership means to our community. Right? So I said, wait a minute. What does this mean for our community? And that was my teachable moment about asking questions first. Really becoming curious about, tell me who you are, what do you want, how you want it, and then do you know what that means to me and the people that I live with? And so I took that lesson so you don't have to. Don't just get in the photo, right? Don't just ask for the proclamation. But we have to start investigating and interrogating our candidates that come before us. Right. Because we have been legislated into poverty. We've been legislated into a health crisis. We've been legislated into lack of homeownership. That's all policy. And I have photos with people that I should not be in. Right? I'm just telling you, real deal. Yeah. So I think, one, we have to, the urban leaders do a really good job of energizing. We gotta execute. We gotta execute though, right? So I think that is, y'all get to see us do all these things, but at the end of the day, there's a whole bunch of people we depend on to make that happen. And y'all are some of the people that we depend on to make that happen. I could write a book, clearly, about some things I done seen and I done done.
All right. I'll move to another question. Linked to that, and this one's around kind of the age demographics linked to what's turn out, yeah? So I'll just throw out another couple of data points. So if you look at, I'll pick the non-presidential cycle, the most recent one, right? So 2022. Age range is 65 to 74, about 60-something or so percent voted. So kind of buttressing the point that you mentioned, but looking at it again from a nationwide perspective, right? Where Houston was hoping worse. 45 to 64, about 60%. 25 to 44, low 40%, yeah? 18 to 24, in the high 20s, right? So that's at 30%. So in your view, why don't young people vote at a higher rate?
Well, I think first, it has a lot to do with representation, and that's for any group. Age, demographic, ethnic background. When people don't see themselves reflected in their elected officials, they don't see the need and reason for participating. You take, for instance, let's just keep it at the federal level since that's what everyone seems to care most about. The average age of members of Congress today, those in the House, 57. The average age of people who are on the other side of that in the Senate, it's 65. Now, the age of 57 is down because Maxwell Frost was elected to the 118th Congress Gen Z, and so he brought down that number it was about 1 year, but so not by a whole lot. But when we look at the fact that in the Senate, the age from the 117th Congress to the 118th Congress went up, the average age, because folks are getting in office, they ain't leaving office, and we don't see a pathway for leadership because it's, hold on, you sit there, you wait your turn. Hey, I heard that when I decided to run for commissioner, by the way, wait your turn, you'll get there, let's let the other folks do it, right? And we ain't about that, right? And so if we don't see ourselves reflected in those who are elected to represent us, then I don't really see the point. And then if you take that to a local level here, I'm gonna just say this. We have an old ass mayor who has some ass backwards viewpoints about where our city needs to go.
See, I didn't say it, he said it. So I'm gonna let him say it. I ain't say it, I said no.
And I use as a prime example because this community is impacted greatly by it, as is mine. Deciding that public transportation is something that only poor people use, and therefore is not something we should be investing in, is not something that our generation vibes with.
That's right.
Why should we have to sit in parking lots to get downtown, to go hang out, or to go to work, instead of being able to hop on a bus rapid transit that could get me there in half the time, right? It's this belief that the way I grew up is the way all y'all should grow up, and we should all be okay with that. And that's not okay. It speaks to why we do need to participate, but it also speaks to why we oftentimes are not.
Yes, if I can speak to that as well. You know, I did hear, what is your pedigree? What makes you qualified to run? And for all of us, for all the senior folk in civic engagement in this room, challenge is every experience is necessary in government. If your experience is coming from business or technology or teaching, all of those experiences are necessary for us to have well-rounded policies that impact people's lives. I'm so happy that Molly Cook won. She's an emergency room nurse. We didn't have any healthcare officials in Texas Senate, right? And that showed in the way that we addressed the pandemic, right? So we need all of the voices from all walks of life. I would say you don't necessarily have to have read poli-sci or be a lawyer to be helpful and useful in government. And so, you know, whereas most people think you have to go that path, I think that whatever path you are, whatever experience you have is valuable in government. And so, you know, I would say maybe some folks have that perception that they didn't follow the path and so they can't be engaged. And then I'll say from a age thing is, I don't know if I'm the youngest, so it's fine. I have money in the world. We are in America. And you're Black in America, there's all these other factors that you have to contend with, in corporate America. Now, affirmative action is under attack. And just in the 1 year since the Supreme Court put a ban in place, enrollment of Black students in Harvard, for example, fell 10%. I mean, we were below before. Now it's just, you know, low single digits. Same with MIT. So we can't assume that these protections will always be there. And so I try to speak to the young folks in my life to let them know you can be an influencer and you can go get yours. And then when the man on top comes and says, here's your tax rate, or you can't get the access or the opportunity that you've always had previously, that's when you know that it's not enough.
if I can color that in, and I appreciate that. And I also teach at HBCU. I teach at Prairie View A&M. I submitted my tenure packet on Tuesday. But what we're seeing nationwide is an increase of enrollment at all of our historically Black colleges. And I'm not just talking about people who barely got out of high school. We're talking about the average GPA of 3.5, 3.7, right? So there's this coming home, this resurgence that's happening in our Black spaces as well, right? That we can recruit and retain the very best. And that we have our own Harvards, we have our own MITs, we have our own Princetons, we have them. And we're producing judges, we're producing attorneys and engineers and architects, right? So I think that's what you're having, because many of them, we ain't got no place to put them, right? They sleeping in the gym. Because we don't have the capacity, right? And I think that speaks to when we go back to policy. So, but let me park right there. So my first presidential election, it was Al Gore. And we were in college, and everybody was excited to make sure you were, registered to vote, NAACP, our student chapter, we were out there. Al Gore don't look like me, but I knew I wouldn't vote for that other man, okay? Al Gore been in the internet, I'm on Al Gore, right? And so I think, and in both, we have to also see ourselves, but we have to also, again, start poking the bear to see what they're talking about, because we do got some skin folk that's elected. Yeah. Got some skin folk that I be looking at them like, what's going on? Skin folk don't say nothing about what's going on. Nothing. And so sometimes the identity politics of just saying you're there is not enough. Especially when they're not with you. Especially when, on that vote ain't solid. Especially on issues that matter. HISD, right? What's happening with our disaster? What's happening with the money? And what's happening with public transit? How that was going to connect the city and connect zip codes to work centers where you don't have to spend an hour and a half in your car in the city of Houston, right? So I think even with us, you bring the smoke. Don't allow us to just slide because what's up? And we slide, and then when we at that vote, and y'all at work, and you're depending on us to hit the right button or make the right vote, and we don't. Right? And y'all don't know till it hits the news. So I think that we have to do a better job of also pipelining, making sure people understand what it takes to be a candidate. There's some days my chief of staff is in the back, and there's some days I tell them I've used all my words. I can't talk to nobody else. I can't talk to anyone else because you engage so much with so many people, but we have to start introducing people to the reality of what public service is. Right? Like showing them like, yeah, you too. Go get your weight up, and this is how you get your weight up. Your weight is, I need you to be at that super neighborhood meeting. For some of you, I need you to be appointed to a city board. For some of you, I need you to, come follow us around. Come be with me over a weekend so you can come meet some people. I need you to have a body of work. Because guess what? The tweets, when Barrel hits and your power's out 6 days, they looking at you. They don't care. I had 6 leaks in my house. These people don't care. Them leaks still not fixed. Right? But Wednesday, as we was out the gate, Barrel hit, my water was at the loading dock on Sunday at Home Depot. My water was stashed in churches before we was ready. We was just waiting for her to go. Showtime, right? So those are the types of muscles, civic engagement muscles you have to develop, because no one's gonna give you the opportunity to be like, well, I'm still learning. We don't get that. We don't get the opportunity to be like, it's my first year. I don't know. They don't care nothing about that. Girl, with my water, with my ice. Get to it, right? And so you have the benefit of an urban league where you can cut your teeth and hide, where no one knows your name and it ain't on the internet and they can't find out where you live, and you can make mistakes and error and grow up in service. So when it's showtime, you're ready. You're perfected, like pure gold. Right? That's what it is. That's why, so leverage your fraternities, your sororities, these civic clubs, those HOAs, where them old people be at busting. Busting about nothing. Go there. Learn, listen, understand the why. So then when it's showtime, they're gonna be like, how you know all that? You're like, child, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been doing this for 5 years. And can't nobody say nothing about it, right? So you're not a flash in the pan. They can't challenge you about, wait your turn. I wish somebody would tell me that. Wait your turn, please. Right? Like, so there's a lot of opportunity, and that's part of the responsibility that we have. We got to grow people up in this work. Oftentimes, while we're growing up in the work, I didn't campaign on disaster preparedness. I didn't campaign on police reforms. I was campaigning on public safety and comes George Floyd. I had to read more police contracts in multiple cities than I've ever had to. I had no idea you'll be faced with the same opportunity. Like you'll be met with the same moment, and you have to be able to switch on that. And we have to bring people along with that, and we don't do that enough. That's why we sit there for 70 years. We don't bring nobody back. And let me say this about my mentor, my deep friend, who I'm still grieving, the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. That woman taught me so much. During burial, do you know she was working? Do you know she was getting distributions on her deathbed?
Wow.
Okay? So we look at that and we're like, oh my God, such a fighter. But how unfortunate that even, 4 days before she passed, a week before she passed, she was doing that. And her mentees weren't able to do that for her, that we were still depending on her in that way. I got people say, oh, Sheila got it. We ain't got to worry about it. Sheila got it. People will say that all the time because she always came through in the clutch. But she can't come through no more. So who's up? She can't come through no more. Like, I literally was trying to text her, and I was like, I can't text that woman. Right? And she wasn't a traditional mentor. She's not doing breakfast and lunch and tea and dinner with y'all. She gonna call you at midnight and say, I have a press conference at 10 a.m. be there. You're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna be there. You gotta change your whole day. Because the Congresswoman, and she'll give you a front row seat to what she's doing. She's gonna put you in the room and she's gonna gas you up to these people. And she's gonna tell you what you need to do and what's the move. And that's how you learn. If you took advantage and was not just happy to be in the room, you would have been like, okay, I got it. Yep, I see what she's doing. So 2021, Winter Storm Uri, a mess, right? Thanks, Ted Cruz, right? So 2021, we freeze. Sheila Jackson Lee comes in, we didn't even have no water. Sheila Jackson Lee comes in with an 18-wheeler full of water before the city. So I watched that because I had no water. And I said, and someone on Facebook said, where's our warming center? I was like, we ain't got one. And that was my learning. I wasn't ready. I watched her and I said, never again. That's how I had water stashed in churches. That's why Home Depot was ready. I watched what she did. She had a whole warehouse. Pampers, baby food, water. She has one. See, so that's the type of stuff that we have to carry. I mean, we have to show people how to do that, right? And so not just assume that you're paying attention to me. Sometimes we gotta pull you to the side and be like, hey, come on, I need you to do it. That's how I became active in YP. The president at the time said, I need you to run for vice president. I said, nah, I don't want to do that. She was like, no. I mean, I was bringing in 9 members a week. Pay your dues, be a member. So I was racking it up. She said, I need you to do it. Sometimes people won't have to tap you, right? Be ready when they tap you, because we can't do it alone. I'm not gonna be doing this at 75, coming in with an 18-wheeler. Y'all gonna give me a Lifetime Achievement Award, I'm gonna be doing this. I'm not gonna be doing that. I'm just saying, so get ready.
Get ready.
I'm not doing that.
All right. So a question about presidential elections versus midterms, local elections, and voter turnout again. Yeah? What would you suggest to encourage folks in the community to vote in midterm and local elections outside of president election years?
Well, I think to what the councilwoman said when in her first response, the response to the first question is that we have romanticized elected officials, in particular, who is the president. And so when we see, we did our duty, we voted for Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Great, we done. But then we didn't show back up in 2010 to make sure he had the Congress to do everything he needed to do. Then what was the result of that? When we tried to cement and make better the Affordable Care Act, we didn't have the ability to do that because we didn't have the legislative weight and power to do it. Why is it important to vote in every election and not just the presidential election? Because when you think about the future of our community, it's folks like me. It's folks like the councilwoman. It's folks like the folks who are on our appraisal district board who are impacting our everyday lives, determining, hey, actually, we have this ability to cement our history. We're gonna build the biggest African American memorial. Why? Because we're here and we said this is what's important. When it comes to actually building the playgrounds in the communities that have historically been excluded, we're going to build that because we grew up in there getting scratched by the rusted slide, right? So actually, we've got the power. We're going to actually make sure we invest in that. When we talk about communities that don't have access to sidewalks, and people are having to walk in the middle of busy roadways just to get to the nearby convenience store, it's the people that you elect at the local level who make those determinations about where those investments go. So hear me, it is important that we vote in every single election, and we should not complain that just because we showed up for the presidential and then the stuff we wanted didn't happen, you voted for the wrong person. It's not the president who is impacting everything you do every day. It's the folks who are in commissioner's court, the folks who are in city council, the people who are on your mud boards if you live in the suburbs, right? These are the people who actually are impacting our everyday lives and have the power to change the quality of life.
Appreciate that. So that speaks to the importance of these other elections, right? Which is good. A lot of folks here probably have a similar mindset to the mindset that you have. I guess what else can we do to encourage others to kind of do that, right? To vote in these other elections. Or anyone wants to kind of speak about that a bit?
Oh yeah, so my election was 2% voter turnout.
Plus a runoff.
Plus a runoff.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have the conversations with folks. A lot of my friends and families didn't know about this election until I was running for the election. So for us in this room, I'd say we're maybe preaching to the choir. You know a little bit more than your friends and your families that are out there. Is have the conversation with them. And people will say all kinds of things they've seen on social media. Where did you get that information? So for us, educate ourselves from the right sources, and then have those conversations with the family. Make sure that they're registered to vote, because we have 30 days actually to vote in the state of Texas. You have to vote. You have to be registered by October 7th. So make sure folks are registered, and then they have a plan to go vote on election day and vote early. So those are the kinds of things we can do in our community. And as the councilwoman said, get involved in your HOA, your MUD, your super neighborhood community. A lot of those things I didn't know about. And now I do, and I say, okay, there's a super neighborhood community that talks about potholes and drainage and these things. We're complaining about our roads. Where do we funnel that complaint, or how do we impact and make the change? So we need to get involved in those community organizations. And then, places like the Urban League get plugged in and say, I said. So it doesn't have to be something so grand. As you start to dip your toe, you're just gonna find so many other opportunities for you. And we all have places of work. You don't have to say I'm supporting a particular party, but the issues at work that concern you, you can talk about as well.
And let me add, when I was chapter president for YP, it was 2008 to 2011. I had an extended term. It was extended. And we had a citywide voter registration drive. We had 24 partners, which turned out to be a multiple county voter registration drive. We were in Fort Bend with the Missouri City Alphas. We were in barbershops. We were on the north side in Montgomery County with Jack and Jill. We had like 12 locations within the city proper registering voters. Y'all can do the same thing too. It ain't got to just be at the Breakfast Club, okay? Get out there to pinpoints and access points all throughout the city and the county, and start registering voters, and not just registration, but voter ID. They are going to play games in 2024. Yeah. And how powerful to have a demographic that meets the demographic that did not come out in 2022, lead the charge in Harris County to say, Brother, sister, I need you registered. Are you registered? They gonna say, some gonna say, I'm still on papers. I don't know, I can't, because that's a trick too. So y'all have to be informed and say, no, brother. You done. Let's go ahead and register you. We were doing that at Sharpstown Mall. How many of y'all remember Sharpstown Mall? When it was Sharpstown Mall, we were out there registering voters in Sharpstown Mall, and we were met with that, right? So how y'all have what? Almost 30 days, right? October 7th, that weekend before the 7th, y'all should blitz the whole city. Y'all should have every partner that you've worked with, whoever's come to your fundraiser, everyone's hosting a spot. We were at Walmarts, we were at churches, we were in barbershops, we were on OST and Scott on the corner, rolling up on cars. Brother, roll that window down. You registered to vote? That's what we were, I mean, it was guerrilla squad. My chief of staff will tell you, we hit the street. We don't do the pretty stuff. And so the same thing I do in my office is what we were doing in YP. Right? So you got to get aggressive about that. And I had friends who weren't registered to vote, and we was bullying them. We was like, girl, you're not registered to vote, girl, please. We are registered. You're not voting? Like, we made it a thing. And she was like, oh, well, let me go ahead and get, let me register. Right? So that's what we should be encouraging people about, right? So y'all should be mastering the language, what they've done in the state legislature about who's eligible to vote. Can you even wear your shirt at the polls? Can you drop somebody off now? All those laws, because these are games, it's set up against us, right? For souls against souls to the polls. And then you should be communicating that out to your communities. Hey, did y'all know when you get to the poll, they coming against mail-in ballots, right? What do you need to do to get the mail-in ballot information out? Do you need to go knock at those senior facilities? And if you're willing to come to District F, we have a list of apartment complex and senior facilities that would love a good touch from y'all. Come bring them some cookies and say, we just want to remind you to vote. Y'all can come on to the west side and get that done, because there's some seniors who don't have that information, and we need them to have their mail-in ballots. We need people who have absentee ballots, right? College campuses. Everyone on those college campuses, they're not from Texas. They don't have a Texas ID, but they might need to vote in Florida. Every vote would count. Y'all need to be responsible and look at owning that process. So those students at TSU, Rice, UHD, that chose to come to Texas for education, they still need to participate in the process, right? So there's a lot of opportunity you have for your peers. So your peers will know that they have a say-so. Because a lot of folks say, well, they're gonna do what they wanna do. I ain't gonna vote. They're gonna vote anyway. I don't need to participate. I'm not in control. You would be surprised at how many candidates were so interested in getting in front of YPs. What else? Right? And so I would like to offer to you, to Palumi's point, people didn't even know about the appraisal district until she was running. Right? So when y'all do your state of the city, start bringing in those people. Right? Start bringing in those people so they can tell you about that property tax. They can tell you about Mama House and why that's important and why you need to own that and what's going to happen with the impact of public schools, that assessment, that bond, that fee. Like, you need to start bringing in those levels of government that's really impacting not just our daily life, but our pocket. But y'all have to be masters of the content first. We're depending on y'all, right? She can't knock on every door. I think she probably deep, but she don't want to do that again. She needs y'all's help. We all need your help in communicating that. So I think that's one of the ways that we can get this out to people, younger people, so they can find themselves a part of that solution.
If I could offer this to you, all of what both Palumi and the councilwoman just talked about is super important, but it's even simpler than that. I'm having a debate watch night party. I've invited friends. There are several who I've invited intentionally who I know are not registered to vote, right? On Instagram, but if we haven't actually done our duty in making sure that our friends, our family members are registered, then what the heck have we actually done, right? And to make it even simpler than that, you can do this from your home. You can download, there's an app, I had to make sure I looked it up so you could search for the right one. It's called Reach, Progressive Organizing. Download the Reach app. You can upload all your contacts in your phone, and you can see the people who you're connected with who are not registered to vote.
That's gonna tell all their business.
You can see it. You can see it from your phone. You can see it. And so then what you do is you send them a text message through that app and tell them, hey, here's a link to where you can go to get registered to vote. And you can also see if they have also voted. Here's the next election. I'm gonna text you to remind you to get your butt up and go vote. This is how easy it is. And if you all haven't ensured that the people in your circles are registered to vote and that the people in your circles are actually voting, if you haven't done that, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it when we're talking about getting rid of drive-through voting, which was made way more accessible to us because you didn't do your part to make sure that your circle was voting so that the people who benefited and who actually benefited most from drive-through voting, women and people of color, have the access to exercise their right to vote. When we're upset that our school board is being taken over by the state and people who don't have the best interests of our students at heart, don't want to hear it. Because did you make sure that the people in your circle were registered to vote? Let me tell you, this is consequential. I talked about all the Black elected officials that we had in the late 1800s who were driven out because folks didn't like that. They instituted whites-only primaries after that, and it was a whole deal, right? It wasn't until 2018 that we elected Black folks back to countywide office. Since then, late 1800s, 2018. If we don't take seriously our right, we'll be right back there. We'll be right back there, and we see all the elements of that today. And so it's really important that we do our part to make sure that we're turning out our folks to vote.
Download the app.
It's called Reach Progressive Organizing. It's blue with like a white ballot on it. Reach Progressive Organizing.
And then text your friend and be like, girl, I know you lying. You got registered to vote? What? Shame. It'll work. That is so embarrassing.
I'll do one or two more questions and then open it up to the audience, yeah? So, of course, all relevant metrics, absolute numbers, percent of registered voters, percent of voters who actually voted, women show up more than men. Two questions. Why do you think that is? And why are women not better represented in elected office?
Can I take that one?
Take it.
I'll take it as the only man on the panel. Well, first and foremost, and we know this period throughout history, women have always carried our communities.
Yep.
When you go back to the origins of our diaspora, we lived in times when women were the leaders in our community. We come here, it's the same thing. We know that a lot of the responsibility, unfortunately and unfairly, rests on the shoulders of women. When there's a gap, oftentimes it's women who's standing in that gap. When there's need for support, who are the first? When after everything happened with Trayvon Martin, with Mike Brown, who were the people who stood up and said, no more, we're protecting our Black children? Women. And so it's no shocker that when it comes to upholding our democracy, women are the ones who are actively participating and making sure that we are protecting our democracy. And that's why I think it's important that we make sure that we make voting convenient, because we often have folks in households where they're working multiple jobs. They have children they have to make sure are cared for. And then when do you find the time before the poll closes at 7? Hopefully that's what time your poll closes. It stays open till, right? But rather, if I have the opportunity, once I get folks situated and I can get somebody to come watch the kids, I can then go vote before I go to bed, or I can get up early after I drop the kids off before I have to report to work to go vote. Making voting more convenient is important, because voting is a right, not a privilege. It's not something that I should necessarily have to work for, right, to be able to do. I think, and in my last point, we know that 2020, the results of that election were so due in large part to the participation of Black women. We know that Black women showed up in huge numbers. We know that in Georgia, to elect Raphael Warnock to the Senate, Black women made that shit happen. Excuse my language, I'm getting a little bit too sorry, but they made that happen, right? And I know that it will be the case again, and even when it came to fighting for the protection of voting rights throughout history, we know that women have a history of doing that. And so that's something to be celebrated, but also too something to be protected.
Very good. Sure, so, in terms of not having women represented, I think we're very comfortable with women, particularly Black women, working in the background. We're comfortable being the default, like the system's gonna take care of it, right? Because we do. And it takes a woman to be asked 7 times to run for office versus a man. 7 times. I was asked 3 times, right? So the fact that we are questioning our ability when we're demonstrating service and leadership in all types of ways, right? Work, church, community, sorority, family, household. But for men, it's like, oh shit, I could do that. I'm one. And you be like, what? You don't know what you're talking about, right? And so I think you have that dynamic that's happening that we have to start seeing women in leadership roles, and that's kind of what the chatter floating around about the vice president, the presidential nominee, right? Like having a woman and the tension around having a Black woman lead our nation. And what you're seeing come up is all of the stuff that's in the back of their head about me and you and your mama and Sister Deacon Jones down at the church, right? It's okay if we fix the meals for the church, for the pastors and the deacons. It's okay to have us there. It's okay for us to make sure that your kids are clothed and ready and in school, but for us to sit at the table and say no, right? So I think there's a shift that has to happen. But also we have women that are in positions that still are leading against our interests. And there was an item that came before council, and I think it was more of an administrative item. The state legislature had basically authorized a tax incentive for NCI for childcare centers, right? And so it was the city's opportunity to adopt that so they can the owners could roll the savings off to the parents, the working people who are sending their kids to daycare so they can go to work and work those 2 jobs, right? And there were women on that council that voted no. Right? Yeah. The tax base. Oh, Houston, we're shrinking our tax base. I just don't think we should be giving that away. Right? So then they minimize your experience, and these are women with children.
That's ridiculous.
Okay? I got nieces and nephews. I ain't got none of them things walking around. And I was like, no, absolutely. Because I think of my cousin that rode the Metro and had to get off on Westheimer and Eldridge. And I remember the Metro leaving her, passing her up, and her working and using public service and using the bus to go pick up her kids. And then stop at the grocery store. Love grocery. I'm thinking of my cousin when I vote yes for that. Because I understand what that means for that family. So I think, I am the first woman, the first African American. At the time of my election, I was under 40. I'm all of that, right? You can punch it, punch, that's great. But if I wasn't doing nothing, it wasn't so. So y'all would be like, she's sorry, right? But I knew I couldn't just rest on the fact that I was just Black, I'm just, I'm a woman and I'm under 40. I knew I had to get that work for everybody, right? So, because I would be, judged off of that. So we have women that are voting against women, our issues. So I think it goes back to, we have to start pipelining the people who share our values and principles into these spaces, not just elected positions, but appointed positions. When appointments come up in Fort Bend, commissioners should have a list of y'all that live in Fort Bend, a resume list of who he can appoint. Ready to go. Because a lot of times we struggling, we trying to figure out, who can do it? Well, somebody who can be on the housing authority? Who can do? We don't have you. So we have that piece, but we also have to start then training them on that's a bad vote. And then there should be consequences for those types of votes. And I remember when they voted and in the horseshoe, it went like this. Woo! Everybody was shocked. And I said, it's hell being poor. God. And I was just in shock that these women were like, the tax base. I just don't think that we should do that. But they didn't say anything about $1 billion package to fire. They didn't say anything about that, right? But for a $3 million that won't even impact the city's budget, that impacts your bottom line, I said no to. So I think, the identity politics may be getting in our way on some level. Just like the skin folk ain't, sometimes, our people ain't. And they don't understand our story. And I think to the commissioner's point when he said, like, people think that this is the way I grew up, so you should grow up that way too. Like, that's not real. That's not real, right? And so I think we have to shake the tree. I think we need a better product of candidates sometimes. And I think a part of that responsibility is ours to make sure people are ready.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Can I add one more piece there? So I will never forget back during the 2016 election, Secretary Clinton was running for president. I was in Louisiana with I have much younger siblings. And I was with my younger siblings and we had the news on. It was the first day that Bill Clinton was on the campaign trail for his wife. And my sister, she, I think at that time must have been like 8 or 9 years old. She said, "Who is that?" I said, "You don't know who that's Bill Clinton." And she said, "Oh, that's Hillary Clinton's husband." Right? No idea that he had been a president, that he, whatever. She was growing up in this time where, when she came of consciousness, Barack Obama was president, and then there was a woman running for president after that. I long for that day. I have 2 daughters right now, a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. I love my wife, I really do. And I want them to grow up in that sort of world where it's like, yeah, of course women do this, but unfortunately we live in a patriarchal society. And so being able to realize that takes folks like Tiffany Thomas stepping up and saying, I'm unapologetically here and I'm unapologetically who I am, not just by showing up, but by doing the work. It's having people like Paloma who are actually willing to run for these roles that are maybe a little bit more obscure, but by people seeing folks like her doing that work, that says, you know what, that is for me, and that is the job that I'm supposed to have, and where I can be. That's what it's going to take. I will accept resumes because I do appoint a lot of folks to boards and commissions. So please make sure I have that before we leave. But we have to make the picture that we want to see in our community. And so despite that statistic, I think we definitely have a lot of hope for where we head.
I have one line on this.
Sure, go ahead.
We need the opportunity to fail forward.
Yeah.
And I believe in numbers.
Yeah.
I'm like, I may not have the right experience, but I need the same opportunity you have to fail forward.
Correct.
And so the more of us that can get in the position, the more that they will see that our story is not one and the same, that it's multifaceted. So, the single mothers, the married mothers, the not so married mothers, the non-mothers, everybody's welcome. You take the table, take the seat, and just take up space. So,
I did have a question concerning just being progressive. I can take a simple example of, I just moved back to Houston from Jersey, don't do that, I recommend. But I will say that, Northeast, for what it's worth, walkable, transportation, all that. And I definitely, thought, okay, I'm gonna park my car and then get to the subway. And then I was like, oh, no, I can't do that. So I definitely see, have always seen the benefit of that. But my main question is what do you think it's gonna take for, be it local, national, regional offices, candidates, to be what we call progressive? Because there's no reason that Japan can have a bullet train all up and down its coast and we can't get to Dallas. So that's one of my questions. But that makes sense.
So that's a good one. I'll start off, but I know the councilwoman will probably have a whole lot more to add than me. We do a lot of infrastructure planning as commissioners, and in Fort Bend County is the case. In Harris, we have a lot of concrete everywhere we turn. I recently sat in a meeting where some folks from our toll road authority were giving me a briefing talking about future expansion of the Grand Parkway and the West Park Tollway and how many lanes we're ultimately gonna need based off of our population projections, and trying to get my buy-in for the plan because ultimately we have to approve it. And I said, well, hold up. We're losing land because developers are buying it all up. We're not gonna have but so much more room to expand the lanes. Are we not, we have what's called a major thoroughfare plan.
Yeah.
And that tells us where we anticipate expanding all of our major arteries of transportation in our community. That's only roadway. Why are we not planning for the ultimate bill to include lanes for bus rapid transit or for rail, commuter rail or light rail? You would have thought when I asked that question, I asked something crazy foreign. But that's because we have this traditional mindset of infrastructure here in Texas in particular, and in the South as a whole, where it's everybody has a car. The thing that you do when you turn 16 is you go down and you get your driver's license, and that's where we are and who we are. Well, my little sister, who I told you is much younger than me, she just got her license last year after she turned 18 years old, right? This generation, by and large, not super eager to get a driver's license, be chauffeured, Uber everywhere, like that's the deal, right? And so we are planning for communities that no longer exist. And so how do we change that? Electing folks who have a different mindset about what the future of our community is. I know the value of public transportation because I lived on the East Coast. I went to school in Boston, I worked in DC. Not everyone has that context, and so we have to have folks like you who move here from New Jersey, people who come from different parts of the world where we know it is the culture of public transportation is talking about how do we have safe bike lanes that are protected from motorists, right? How do we ensure that we have trails where someone does not have to travel alongside a highway to get from Fort Bend County to downtown Houston, right? Those are the sorts of things that we have to be having conversations around, but we need folks like you to be in the room to make it happen.
Ditto to all of that, and that's one of the reasons why I raised the point about appointments, because Metro is an appointed board. So at the pleasure of the mayor. So if you're the mayor, you're appointing people with your ideology. And so they don't have to report to you. Look at HISD. They don't have to talk to you if they don't want to. And similarly, we've been asking Metro for a whole lot of stuff and not getting that because there's no accountability. They don't have to really engage. When I was campaigning for council, Metro Next was on the ballot. And I distinctly recall the excitement about the opportunity of connecting the west side to like the core of the city, to the north side, and what that would do for that West Chase area and move people west where you can, and I used to take the parking ride when I worked in the medical center and take the rail, and I took the 132 Hartwell to get to work. Like I used the bus, right? When I got my first job, I said, well, Daddy, who's gonna pick me up? And he dropped off 2 Metro packages. He said, you better find your way. No joke. He said, got anybody dropping you off? The hustle was like, why? So we went to work riding the bus. So I have a Metro story, right? And I distinctly recall when the chair came before council for approval, I asked her on purpose on record, tell me you're a supporter around Metro Next in the university line. Because I need you to play in the public square, right? And we need to force people to play in the public square, and those appointments are really important. So when you provide your resume to the commissioner, and he appoints you to, I don't know, the toll road authority, you're gonna be the voice of integrity to say, but hold on, slow down, right? We have to do and both. We have different generational needs in terms of driving, bike lanes, trails, all of that, how we look at community, how we redefine that. It's you, because we can't do it all. And so the appointment piece really goes over a lot of people's head because they just look at the elected official, not looking at the amount of influence that official has for Metro, how we engage with TxDOT. We are a freeway city.
Yeah.
Right? And so we have a mayor that is pro-freeway. Right? So all of those, and that mayoral election that was in 23 was one of the lowest performing elections in the city. One of the lowest performing, because people weren't excited. People weren't excited, and I think excitement and hope is really important. I felt like when President Biden really like did his real big one, was saying, I want to do what's best for America. And in that, he could have been like, and peace out. But he said, but I also want to support her to lead us, right? When he did that, I was like, ooh, it felt like 08. I said, uh-oh, this feels like 08 again. The excitement around it, we didn't see that in 23. It was just like, ooh, child. Like, that's what it was. And so we have to do a better job. I know at the local level, it's hard to communicate that. We vote every Wednesday at 9. Every week I'm in the seat, right? It moves that quick. There's a new agenda every week. It moves that quick. So that's why we need people watching, accompanying us, paying attention, elevating things when those agenda items come out. I need people I can call and say, hey, I need you to sign up for public session. I need you to come, I need you to go get some people. Hey, I need y'all to talk on this item. I need y'all to do a public open letter, right? So people know that it's not just us. I can do all of this in the horseshoe all day long. But really, when y'all show up in the room, they'll be like, uh-oh, we might need to pull that item. Uh-oh, we might need to change it. Uh-oh, because they don't want that heat. And then let me also say this about the Black political class, that, you know, there's something tricky about that Black political class. The Black political class is going to benefit no matter who's mayor, because they're going to go where that money is. They're looking at, oh, I got the contract. Oh, I got the deal. They're not necessarily talking about the collective. It doesn't matter. So I just don't think it's in good positioning for us to try to appeal to the moral consciousness of someone that is looking at a transaction, right? We just have to extract them out. We're the heartbeat of this conversation, right? And a lot of times there's a subset of the Black political class that's really doing a lot of harm to us, because they're gonna position them as, the Black people like me, look, I got a Black one. I got a Black one. They're gonna put the Black one on their flyer, they're gonna put the Black one, they're gonna have the Black one talk to the community meetings and feel like they have the Black one, but they're doing so much harm to us in the back. Y'all have to pay attention to that. You know, you have to pay attention to that. And I think the appointment process is really a good pathway to get people pipeline so you can start learning, because you need to be able to do that in a place where you're like, okay, get your bearings, so when the light is on, you're ready. But I think those type of comments coming to the horseshoe would land very well. So people are reminded that they are watching us. Because a lot of times we're voting and we don't think anyone's paying attention. But when you show up and be like, uh-oh, what'd she say? Okay, go get her name. Let's talk to her. Right, so we need that. So if you will allow us, as we continue to serve you, there's ways that you can serve us in those capacities as well.
I want to say one more thing, because transportation is a real big deal for me. The one thing I would love help with, if you actually follow the history of the development of transportation in the state of Texas, you look at how our funding streams to fund state government, where they come from. We have a gas tax. That is where the state saw a tremendous surplus. After COVID, was a lot of the money that came from the gas tax. If you are from around here, you know the history. If you don't, let me put you on the game. There used to be a rail line that came down where much of the right-of-way along I-10 is. That was sold. When Tom DeLay was Speaker of the House, a lot of that right-of-way was sold. There are buildings, high-rise buildings that are built on top of where there was a rail line, because there was conversation about what commuter rail might look like in connecting the core of Houston out to the suburbs. Does that sound familiar to something going on right now? Who stands to be harmed by that? Well, perhaps the oil and gas industry, and then ultimately the cash cow that funds our state government. That money, by the way, does not flow down to our local governments like that, right? Also, by the state constitution, the Texas Department of Transportation cannot spend its budget on anything except building highways. constitutionally prohibited from spending money on building that bullet train from Houston to Dallas. Can't do it. Can't do it because that is not what's in the Constitution. That requires someone in our state legislature advancing a bill that hopefully the speaker will allow to go forward. And getting the support, getting it passed, and getting a ballot initiative for you and I to vote to change the way that TxDOT is able to spend their money to invest in the sort of transportation that our communities require. And so if I could petition YP to help with anything, at some point, I'm gonna get some political muster to be able to take on that fight because that's the one that's worth our future. And as we talk about all of our environmental crises and everything else, when we follow how the funding for transportation works and we change that, I think we solve a whole host of other social ills.
To get to where you are, and then also the lift once you're there. I think what's really important is that we've got this amazing room of people, and I'm very familiar with Hall YP and everything that the Houston Area Urban League does. I have always sought mentors in my life. I thought it was really important. I came up in corporate, so Palumi, I understand where you are. Yet we're looking for mentors, and we also have all of these elected officials that have the capacity to mentor. Now we're talking about the age of people that are in these positions, yet when they leave, all of the knowledge leaves with them. So what we're missing is the pipeline, and you mentioned that a number of times. How do we groom? What do we tell everyone in this room? Who would be interested in being mentored to become more active in the process? What is the call to action to get them to get connected with each and every one of you or others that you know, regardless of their district, so that they can start to learn the ropes? Because in our schools, there's no more civic government, there's no more education, that's by design. So how do we get them activated very clearly through the noise so they can start working with you?
I'll decline that. If you ask me, can I pick your brain? It's an automatic no. I feel like it's intellectual theft. Okay? But you want to get that work? Come, we're going to do it. You want to pass out 2,000 cases of water? You want to blitz 50 apartment complexes and get these seniors some hot meals with Red Cross? Let's go. You want a team? We have a District F translation team because we have to make sure that we communicate to multiple communities. You want to use your background and your culture to help me get resources to the street? Let's go. We have a District F volunteer corps because, see, I can't depend on OEM. They didn't even reach out to us on the west side. But we have a volunteer team that blitzed us. You see what I'm saying? So for me, I'm gonna give you a front row seat. I have a whole youth initiative called A-Leave Votes where we're running young people, fellows, and they're taking on civic projects in the district. And they get to come to City Hall, they're integrated into our programming, they're on the street registering voters. We do that for young people, but we also can do that for adults. We have young, mid-career professionals come to the office, I'll show you the game. It's not mine to behold. I'm not gatekeeping this. I want to show you the play because I didn't have that. I remember someone telling me, well, I really think you need to, go meet with this group because they can really make or break your campaign. And I said, these people don't even know the boundaries of my district. When I say A-Leaf, they think that's not even the city of Houston. Right. So if you don't think where I am choosing to represent is the city of Houston, what play you think you got over me? I know the West Side. I got the West on lock. Right? So I knew going into rooms like I could run the table because I have the West Side on lock. And there's other people just like me that in this community that can come up here and do that work. So if you're ready to do that, then we can do it. And we'll have fun along the way. But I'm very similar to the Congresswoman in the fact of it's really hard to have breakfast at 7 a.m. We're literally grinding. I'm housing chair. I'm trying to make sure that money gets to y'all on the street, that we can repair your homes. You want to understand the policy. You want to understand those things. Let's rock. That's an open door. That's an open conversation. And it might mean you might need to be with me all day on a Friday and staff me, and we're going to go to 5 different events. That's how the Congresswoman would do it. See, if you want to rock with her, she's going to say, listen, come get me. You going to rock? Come get me. And listen, I'm an elected official. My photo's in 2 airports. I held her purse. right? But when I would go to DC, she would introduce me to everybody, right? But when I was in her presence, I would support her in whatever she needed. You see what I'm saying? So before I was elected, we would host, I had an women's group, and we hosted a house meet and greet for them. I brought students from Prairie View, other women's in the room, so they could just hear from her. And I just remember how appreciative she was to kind of tell her story, because she was pulling a lot of challengers in her primary back then. And so, like, it's those types of things that you can learn a lot from us, but we need y'all just as much, right? What rooms can we be in to understand your community and needs where we may not have that opportunity? So don't just look at it as we have all the juice. Y'all got juice too? Y'all got juices too? Like, I've never been here, right? This is a whole new space. My chief of staff was just at like the only Spanish mosque in the nation. They're doing amazing things, right? CNN be calling them. Like, that's right here on the west side. So we're looking for spaces where we can come in and connect with communities, but you can always come connect with us. That's easy. That is free game. Free game. Like, y'all want that word? It is free 99. We will gladly share that. Information that comes to me, I believe, is the community's information. That's the benefit I get to sit in the seat where I could be like, hey, we need to run a play on that. I need to send that out to y'all. But y'all also need to be very comfortable in understanding what it is and what we're talking about. Because guess what? It may be you in 20 years, in 10 years, standing before council or swearing in or being appointed, right? Or being someone's chief of staff or someone's legislator. It may be you. And so come take full advantage of who we are. Talk to Palumi about her work and her lessons learned as a first-time candidate. That is hard. Having a family, a career, right? It's difficult. Come talk to Dexter about being commissioner and then all the stuff he had to do by just being Black and saying we're gonna acknowledge Kendleton exists, right? The pushback you get with just being Black, right? Come talk to me when I've had a council member put his hands in my hair, pat me on the head. And he still got hands. I ain't laying him out. Right? Come talk to me about those things, like the things that's not on the paper. Come talk to us about the stuff that you get to navigate. And to Central's point, I think there's a lot of people that would be willing to do that. And I would just say, being elected, there's a lot of people who pull at us. So we got to know that we can trust you with the soft side, like our underbelly, right? And so picking your brain, that's theft. I've worked a long time. I've taken hits and bruises. So just to sit up and pull from me is not a good exchange. We have to walk in tandem with each other, right? You don't just go to your elders, right? And just be like, take. You go sit with Mama, and she gonna show you how to make that gumbo. And she gonna show you the ingredients of that root. And it takes time, right? You don't get gumbo in an hour. It ain't good if you do. It ain't good, right? In the same way with service, it takes time, right? We gotta be together. We gotta continue to serve. And I think those opportunities are always available.
I want y'all to go out here humming Sam Cooke's song, said it's time for change. And I am here to do that. And a woman has never sat in this seat. And I'm going to be the first, but I will not be the last. Understand that. This is the Court of Appeals, where in fact you have appellate cases. We get appellate cases. Notice I said we. We are justices because we are at the appellate level, like with your Supreme Court. They're not called judges, they're called justices. Because the Court of Appeals may be the last resort for a lot of us that are in this room. Because the Supreme Courts of Texas, which is the civil side, and the Court of Criminal Appeals, which is the criminal side, Court of Criminal Appeals, that handles your death penalty cases, or maybe your writs, which will go from on the criminal side. Those courts decide what cases they want to take. You don't have an automatic appeal that in fact they're gonna hear everything. Appellate courts as I say, it may be the last resort for a lot of people. Reason I say that, because we have jurisdiction in 10 counties. There's Harris, Fort Bend, Austin, Chambers, Colorado, Grimes, Galveston, Waller, and Washington counties, and I hope I didn't forget any, Colorado. All of those cases come to the 1st and 14th Court of Appeals. We handle 24% of the appellate cases in the state of Texas. Harris County alone could be a state. Think about it. Everybody, a lot of people don't even know where the Court of Appeals sits, let alone if it's in existence. It handles cases that come up from family level, civil, and criminal cases. I've handled aggravated, I'm a 30-year trial court veteran, I'll tell you that now. I've done aggravated robberies, I've done murder, I've done civil side, I do PI, I've done med-mal, done probate, done trust. Name it, it's not something that I have not done. Period. You need experience on these courts. And one other thing we need to do to let y'all know in this room, this is a room of people of color. You need to have representation on those courts. Yeah. Right now, we have 18 seats. There's not one justice that look like us. And 18 seats. The two chief justices, both are Caucasian. One white male and one white female. Understand this. We are so underrepresented on the legal level where decisions matter. I'll tell you, I bring a new perspective on this court and the way evidence is viewed from the trial court level to find out whether or not there have been any mistakes made, whether or not you deserve a new trial, fundamental reversible error. There are 3 sisters that are running on this court. It is 10 of us running together, and I'll give you my cards on your way out. But there are 10 of us running. 3 of us are black female. As they stated, the black woman has this country. Ask James Clyburn, and if you ask your current sitting president, because James Clyburn in 2020 told Joseph Robinette Biden, he said, if you want to win this election, I'll tell you how to do it. You need to get the black woman's vote. He went out and followed the rules as it was written, the Robinette Rules of Order, and he followed him, and what did he get? A win in the White House. And he was smart enough to pass on the baton at the right time, not willingly at first, but he knew that in fact, the better part of this country would needed to be in the hands of someone younger, someone as smart, someone as capable. And I'll tell you now, I am qualified, capable, and courageous because all of this stuff that people were talking about, that, wait your turn, I never heard that, and I ain't hearing it now.
That's right.
Ever, period. Some of you who know people are in law school or want to go to law school, I expect you to put me out of a job. You know why? Because you need to come up there and come and see what we do. People don't even know what the Court of Appeals is located at 301 Fannin. It looks like it's a beautiful courthouse. It looks like you would think it looks like a mausoleum. Because people don't even go there. We had to protest. Let me give you a little back history of how we got on the ballot. One of the young ladies who are now on the ballot, she was sued because the Caucasian male didn't think she qualified to even put her name on the ballot. 2 others followed. He mandamused her. Let me tell you what a mandamus is. When you want the court to rule and rule right now because one court did not get it right. And he mandamused her all the way to the Texas Supreme Court. And you know what they told him? If you want to win, you better go out there and get your election and run it yourself because we are not going to help you. And let me tell you how we had to get on the ballot. There takes a minimum of 250 signatures of voters. Thank you, voters. We positioned ourselves in the right precincts at the right time with the right people. Oh, I can tell whether or not y'all having to vote because I can take people will tell me, oh yeah, I'm voting. I say, yeah, what's your name? Last name, yes. I say, here, let me pull up my phone and see whether or not you're registered. On the spot. I don't believe in waiting because people can tell you one thing today and then 5 minutes later, I'll say, no, you're not registered. Here, I have a voter registration card out. Fill it out or I can fill it out for you because the only thing you need to do is sign it. They mandamused her to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, and during the summer of last year, we call it the Incumbent Protection Act. They went and made it a law and tried to change the rules of engagement, how our names get on the ballot. Of course, your sister here, I already had my stuff intact. I said, you know what, bring it if you want to. Because my position was, and my mantra was, don't start now, won't be none, period. But they changed the rules of engagement about our qualifications. We were qualified to run when the Republicans had the rule for 25 to 30 years. This is why you don't get cases overturned on appeal. And they had a gravy train at the Supreme Court and at the Supreme Court civil and the criminal level. Because if they made mistakes, who cares? They could be dumb as Georgians because everybody was just going to keep it going as long as they stayed in power. It is about power, it is about knowledge. those Gen Zs and those who are younger than Gen Zs or those who are up and coming, I need you to register to vote, and I need y'all to vote and vote early, period. My grandbaby's been going to the polls since she was 2 years old, because I told my daughter, I dare you not to take her. She needs to understand what it looks like at the polls and see people like her. They're in California. California's a little more progressive than Texas, but we need to make sure that, in fact, I believe in the James Carville rule of engagement. Once you get your opponent on the mat, you finish them off and you don't let them up. Period. Dot, end of sentence. Because we need to make sure that we keep the Dexter McCoys on the commission, of course. We need to make sure that Palumi and I met in Spring Branch when she was running for the Harris County appraisal. She was in the runoff, and I was in the runoff too. But you know who got me over there? We block walked, we called, we texted, we did the hard work, and we're still doing it now. We go out there because I need to get some neighborhoods and some literature from these two, because that's what we do. We go out and block walk. People don't have a lot of money, but you have to make sure if nobody helps you, you need to make sure that you help yourself. Because nobody can vote for you. They've changed. Texas is the most oppressive state in this union when it comes to voting. We need to make sure that that does not continue. Because actually, Harris County has enough registered voters on the roll to take back Texas. Harris County alone, as I stated, it could be a state. Harris County, and Democratic voters on the roll to take back Texas. We need to understand the power with which we wield, that they don't want this smoke.
Say that name again. Velda.
3 times. Velda Renita Faulkner. Velda Renita Faulkner. I want you to remember this. Velda Renita Faulkner for justice. 14
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending tonight's Pipeline to Power. It's been a pleasure having you all here tonight. Please, let's give another round of applause to here at SED Institute, we deeply value people, connecting and taking the time to reach out to others. We hope that this will not be the last time that we see you. We'll be having our 5th annual ball coming up December 5th of this year. We would really love to have you there. If you came in after the opening message, the proceeds going from the ball will be going towards our Africa House, which is a repurposed property that we're hoping to create into a hub for culture, art, community, and professional development. So we would really love you to contribute towards that and be a great addition to our community. Yes, this is our last message for the night. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Get home safe, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, it's all about the power of representation. It's about the pipeline, ensuring that there are no gatekeepers. And the only way that you can do that is really by creating a pipeline of power. You got to make sure that that power flows through. You got to make sure that you keep the power of representation happening. This is a serious and critical election. This is the election separating the past America from the future America, making this the true one present America, right? Or the one present election or election of the present. So in other words, pipeline to power, make sure that it happens right here at SED Institute. Come and visit. Thank you.